Welcome back to Burnout Break Room, the podcast that's like a break room, but helpful, where we look at burnout through a realistic lens, talk about ways to take a break from the grind, and spill the tea. I'm Caitlin Truhella, creativity coach and speaker.
And I'm Lyndie Larimore, licensed therapist and certified career coach.
We are your hosts, and thank you for joining us here in the Burnout Break Room. How you doing, Lyndie?
I'm not bad. I'm not bad. I'm fully enjoying my girl summer. That's the vibe that I'm in right now. How about you?
Hell yes. I would like to say the same, but it is so hot here in California. I think today was like 109. So I am enjoying the workout inside summer.
Gross, gross. And do you kind of want to punch people when they say, but it's a dry heat?
Honestly, Lindy, like in all of the different biomes that I have lived in, I'm honestly just sick of the weather conversations altogether because I've lived in snow and I'll tell you personally, I'm like a polar bear. The colder the better. Like I'll be outside shoveling 3 feet of snow in like shorts and a t-shirt.
Where have you lived in snow? I haven't heard of this part of your life.
So the interesting thing about California, especially like Southern California, is the distance between the different biomes is so short. Like you can drive
Hmm.
2 hours, be in the desert, drive another 2 hours and be at the beach. And in between, there'll be the mountains where I grew up. And I will never forget when I was growing up as a teenager there was weather forecast. He said a 20% chance of precipitation. We got 2 feet of snow in May.
Yeah, I thought that only happened in New England. I guess not. Yeah.
Right, right. So, and of course, everybody's experience, especially regionally with weather is different. But that's why, like, you'll never catch me gatekeeping the weather experience because they're all different and
Hmm.
we're all different. So, whatever your experience is what it is.
It's all welcome here. All weather experiences are welcome in the burnout break room.
In fact, my grandfather, I love this one. And this also just gives you a beautiful insight into the person that he was. He used to say, whether the weather be hot or whether the weather be cold, or whether the weather, whatever the weather, whether we like it or not.
I'm I really love your grandparents. They sound so cool.
Hmm.
Are they with us anymore?
No, unfortunately, they both passed away when I was fairly young, but I hold them in my memory all the time and keep those, isms of theirs very close to my heart. So they live on through these stories.
Hmm. We've all learned from them here.
Hmm.
Well, speaking of New England, how's that for a segue? I am so excited for today's guest. We are joined today by Emily Bieber Harris. Emily is a full time product manager working for a hiring software company and a freelance professional classical singer in the Boston area, which is how I know Emily. And I have to say, Emily is like wildly underselling herself. So I'm just going to speak to what I know about Emily. So Emily has a pretty badass career here in Boston as a soprano and is just a joy to work with, which is saying something, right? Like I've there's some lovely people that we work with, but Emily stands out as being a colleague that was truly a pleasure to work with. Maybe too much of a pleasure because we had far too much fun, which we'll get into in a second, doing a production of Deflator Mouse for Opera 51. Emily and I were covers. I covered the role of Rosalinda, and you covered, who was it again? Was it Adele?
Adele, yeah.
Adele, yeah. And as we were, I tell this story all the time as a therapist to my clients as we were walking on stage to do our performance of this production that we've been working on for what felt like years at that point. Do you remember what we said to each other when we were about to walk on stage?
I feel like I should, and it's not at the tip of my brain right now.
It's totally fine. I won't hold it against you. I'm pretty sure our mantra was none of this matters and nobody cares.
That's right. I was like, I bet it was something about something super nihilistic. I'm like, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter at all.
it's exactly what it was.
Doesn't matter.
None of this matters and nobody cares. And I that sticks with me forever because there are so many people in the opera singing world that would have been mortified to like have that as their cheerleading sentence walking on stage to do this huge role with a bunch of high D's. Um, and but you got it, and like we both knew that that's exactly what we needed to hear. And it was just such a pleasure from there. Anyway, so Emily, I'm going to shut up and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you're with us today.
Yeah. So yeah, as a singer and a full-time tech employee, I am a very busy person a lot of the time. And I also have to acknowledge that like I didn't take enough care of my own health and like my anxiety, and that ended up, playing into why my cancer diagnosis in 2021 was so bad. And so part of the reason I'm here is like I was so burned out in 2020, like having been laid off at the beginning of COVID and having to finding a job I didn't fit well in, and just feeling so anxious all the time. And I spent so much time in my own mind being tied up in knots.
Mm.
And I wasn't actually taking care of my physical self. And that's part of why when I was diagnosed, I was a stage 4, which is like the dumbest thing that I let happen to myself. And even now, like 5 years later, I still get like I pushed myself too far. And so I continually have to remind myself, like none of this matters. I've had a lot of conversations with myself in the last, 2 months where it's like, is this going to matter in 5 years? This thing that's making you cry right now, is this going to matter in 5 years? No. So like walk away. So I'm here because I'm still working on it. I'm still learning myself.
I love that perspective, Emily, especially because even once something pushes us to the brink of realization to understand that something needs to change, and especially when it comes to self-care, it is still a process to learn and continually implement into our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. You can know that like, oh, I'm so burned out right now, but it's more practice, I think, to do stuff about it. Or like, I'm so stressed, I'm so high strung. You can acknowledge that, but it's harder to take action, I think.
Mm.
Maybe just for me.
I'm going to say not just for you, or else this podcast wouldn't exist. But
Fair.
um, strong relate. But Emily, would you mind sharing more about, because you and I haven't even had the opportunity to talk really since your diagnosis, and so human to human, but also with a large audience. Talk me through a little, whatever you care to share about that experience.
Absolutely. So I can try to scale down the long version, but it was after my layoff and finding a new job, and I was safely in a new job by this time, but I was starting to notice like bumps growing on my back. And I've never had like weird skin problems. They were like the size of a quarter. And I went to one doctor who said, oh no, that was a doctor I went to for being dizzy. I was getting dizzy spells. He told me just don't drive in the fast lane, which is like the most dismissive doctor comment I've ever had. And then I said in passing in that appointment with the doctor, like I also have these lumps growing on my back, and he'd not even answer or seem phased. So that was meeting a doctor in person. Later, I did like a virtual appointment because I was scared to go to the doctor because this was before the vaccine and I didn't want to get sick. And the doctor that I spoke to virtually said that it was a benign lipoma. They usually hit, men in their 40s, and they're hereditary or whatever, they're genetic. And I was like, well, I'm not a man in my 40s. Nobody in my family has these. Finally, my grandmother died, and my family came out to bring me some of her furniture. And there is a part of me that believes that this all happened for a reason, even though I don't believe in fate. But having my mother visit, she noticed the one that I had on my shoulder that was growing the fastest and was like the most gnarly looking. And she was like, you got to go to a doctor right now. She would not handle it. She was like, you have to get an appointment right now. Like, call a doctor before I leave your side right now. And it was like,
Mm.
yes, mother. But she was right, because then I went and got it removed. And 2 weeks later, they were like, you have stage 4 melanoma and you need to see a doctor right away. It was just, and it went, you know, the one thing I'll say is when you're diagnosed stage 4, the doctors see it fast. You don't wait for appointments at stage 4.
Jeez.
Hmm.
Jeez.
I should
Jeez.
note I'm healthy now. I'm done with treatment and I'm good.
Mm. Mm.
But it's a rough go of it for a while.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, and Emily, of course, I could ask you a million questions, and I'm just so
The whole thing.
right. I'm just so wildly grateful that you're here. I didn't even
Thank
realize it
you.
was as serious as it was. And kind of thinking through the lens of burnout, so many times we've had lovely guests, amazing guests who have shared that their experience with burnout was one where, maybe they had some physical symptoms of stress. Absolutely. I think we all have. Um, I will say that it seems as if Emily, like your body was the one that was screaming the loudest, maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know, first of all, what it was about that situation that causes you to say it was stress related.
Good question. I think so. Obviously, it may have happened anyway, but I
Mhm.
think that so this was the year of 2020 to 2021.
Mm.
And I had Isaac and I, my husband, we'd moved from Medford in Mass, where we had been for, 5 years. And we moved up to Lowell because we were thinking, like, let's try something new. And, it was a scenario where we had signed our lease and then we were both immediately laid off because this was in April of 2020.
Mhm.
So that
Hmm.
in and of itself caused me just like a great personal anxiety, and living in a new place where I didn't know the neighborhood. I didn't know anyone. I was in we had a 1 bedroom apartment, but it was like more like a studio because the bedroom had a wall with just like a big hole in it. So I was having to work from home in this tiny little apartment. My husband was working outside of the house. So he was leaving every day. I was alone most of the time in one room for a year. And I got so like highly strung. I was afraid of everything. Like I had to force myself to go outside because I run for fun. Who does that? But I like to go running. And by the end of the year, I had forced myself to get used to running in the gym. And then again, like when the weather got better, I'd force myself to go outside and run in the neighborhood a little bit. But it was work to make myself do that. Mind you, also, nobody should be able to run 5 miles with stage 4 cancer. Who does that? But that's me.
I'm in
All
no way
crazy.
surprised. In no way surprised. And so I'm curious, like you got the diagnosis. I'm sure there was a treatment course. I'm wondering, knowing that you like this is stress, like this is the embodiment of stress, how has your life changed through
It's
all of
changed a
this?
lot. So like if you go to the first few days after the diagnosis, like we went and grabbed, Wendy's on the way home from finding out I had cancer, called every member of my family on the car drive home and cried with them all, and then went and ate fries that tasted like air because we were so upset. And like the next day I was like writing down my bank passwords in a notebook, like, I don't know, do you need this? Am I gonna die? I don't know.
Yeah.
And like looking at that and looking at where I am now, it has absolutely colored, I think, of most of my decisions of the past 5 years, where it's like, I don't think I'm gonna go anywhere anytime soon, but I try to make sure, like, I make sure all of my benefit stuff at work have my husband listed. Like, I have everything set up. I want to make sure everything's in a place he can find it. And I take my health way more seriously, even like my dental health. I'm so much more serious about every aspect of like keeping my body healthy, because I did neglect a bit of that, but I think you get so used to thinking that you're okay as a young person. You go through your 20s, you're still kind of bounced back and invincible, and then you hit your 30s and it stops being so real. It
Mm.
starts being more like you can't sleep it off as much. And then if something like that happens, you don't ever think that could happen in your 30s. I was 37 when
Mm.
I was diagnosed. Like, that's not a 37-year-old disease. And
Mm.
so it's changed every decision I make of just like, I'm not going to be around forever. I want to do this thing. If I can do the thing and it's not going to hurt anybody, I'm going to do it.
And Emily, I so appreciate your perspective on health that extends beyond exercise because I feel like so often we get into a pattern of thinking that, oh, I'm healthy because I'm fairly young and I'm active and checking
Yeah.
off like just that handful of boxes, which obviously those are important part of health, but when we have to consider our whole selves. And going back to something that you were talking about before and our conversation before we started recording as well, looking at how community plays a role in that too. When people in our circle, people that love and care about us say like you need to prioritize this or like you need to go see a doctor or you need to, get that checked out. That can sometimes be a big wake up call for us in order to prioritize, like you said, all parts of our health.
Yeah, and credit where it's due. My husband told me first that I should get the my back checked out. And I was like, yeah, all right. But then my mother told me and I was like, okay. And
Mm,
now my husband's like, what did I say? And he has every right to do that. But you're right. And I have to also acknowledge that, when I got sick, I have so many family members. I don't live near my immediate family. They're in Michigan and I'm out now in New Hampshire. And going through this, I would never say alone because I didn't. Like geographically, somewhat alone. I had my husband and I had my mother-in-law, and they were both incredible. But I started the blog that I have on my website just to keep my community updated with what was going on because of how many people were asking, which meant a ton to me because that meant I wasn't fighting alone. And I do think that helped. So community helps on both sides. It helps me keep my health in check and reminds me that that's important, but they're also there fighting with me when something happens.
mm. And especially during the time, like you mentioned, during the, required isolation during COVID, that's a situation that nobody expected or planned for or, necessarily knew how to respond to. But that's an amazing way of maintaining, contact and updates with loved ones and people in your circle. I love that.
Yeah, it really helped. And I would never recommend a cancer diagnosis, but I was even surprised at how many people cared. Like
Mm,
you go through every day and you don't think about like, because I've had depression and I know that feeling of like, I bet nobody would care if I'm gone. Like, and the reality is you have no idea how many people care that you're here and want you here, until something disastrous happens. And I'm so lucky that it happened the way that it did. I mean, I guess lucky is not the right word. There are parts that are so lucky, but that I got to learn that about myself and that I get to keep going with that information.
absolutely. Yeah, there are definitely pieces of these experiences that, we can take with us and see the positive side and use as tools to maintain those positive systems and, connections with our priorities in life. So, yeah, that's an incredible message right there.
And I'm remembering, Emily, some of the conversations that we were having back in the day before the pandemic. I'm remembering myself, and I was fully hardcore immersed in hustle culture, especially when it comes to singing at that point. And I feel like we talked a lot about that. And I feel like you were there too. I don't know if, that's how you would define it, but I do think, being sopranos, for those who care or know, being sopranos means we have to hustle a little harder. It's just there's a lot of competition. We sing in a town where they're pumping out cute little 20 something year old sopranos every December and May. And yeah, so to be someone who sticks out, you just have to constantly be pounding the pavement, auditioning, networking, selling your soul, and some light prostitution, right? Like, just all of those things. Just kidding. I never did that, for the record. I don't think you did
Either.
either.
No.
Um, anyway, so if you can relate it all to that hustle culture, whether it's being a soprano or in your field, I'm curious to know how that's changed, if it's changed at all.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree. I was definitely part of that hustle culture for a long time. Like Yeah, also as a soprano, like there are so many sopranos compared to every other voice type. It's so much harder. And so for a long time, I was just doing every single thing that came up, every single thing that I saw come up on the Boston Singers Resource audition page, I would go do. And right before the pandemic, I was actually feeling like, oh, this is going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pandemic hit and like gone, everything gone. So now on the other side, especially on the other side of being sick, I'm just like, I sing because I love singing. And I am really, really privileged in that I have a career, my day job, that gives me enough money to live. So if I sing for money, awesome. If I sing for free, awesome. Like, frankly, this summer, I've been singing at the open mic night down the street that happens monthly. It's at an Irish pub. I've been singing opera. I go in, I play recording from YouTube off my phone, and I sing over it.
Oh my
and
goodness.
It's been really well received. I just do it for free. I sing 3 songs and I'm done. But it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not paid or anything. It's just an open mic, but
yeah,
it was just something I wanted to do, and they love me there, I think. I mean, I hope. If they hear me, I'm making assumptions, but they seem really, really thrilled to have me. So in some ways, just stop. Like I'm in my 40s now. I'm not going to be a full-time professional singer, and that's okay. You kind of have a moment where you come to peace with it, and it's like, what really matters? Well, what really matters to me is just that I sing. So find a way to do that. And for my real job, my full-time job, I have a harder time of it, partly just because I'm really stubborn and I like to solve problems. So in other ways, I have to make myself step back and just like, you can try really hard, but you can't control everything. And you have to take breaths. You just have to like breathe sometimes.
Did going through the diagnosis help you learn about control?
Yes, absolutely. Because my initial round of treatments were so painful, and like the immunotherapy is a miracle. And if I can take 2 seconds and talk about how amazing immunotherapy is, it only came into the market like in 2011 or so. So if I had been diagnosed a decade earlier, I might have been on chemotherapy and I might have died, because the rates of passing were like 96%. You were like only like 4% likely to live from what I had or something. It's been a while since I saw the actual numbers, but it was so bad that when I was diagnosed, my dermatologist said not to Google it, which is also a terrifying thing to hear. Yeah. But immunotherapy raised those survival rates up to like 60 something percent, if not higher, because it keeps working. So, but that said, it's supposed to be an easy treatment. It's basically taking your immune system and bulking it up so that it can fight the cancer itself, which it did. But it also killed my adrenal glands and gave me immunohepatitis, and immunotherapy caused colitis. I forget. There was a whole bunch. So I was in the hospital for 2 weeks because basically my body attacked itself so badly they thought I had sepsis. And the first round of treatment happened and I was still trying to work. I was on my couch wrapped in a robe with my laptop on my lap, and I had the volume turned up all the way. So I'd fall asleep and someone would Slack me and I'd answer the Slack and then I'd fall back asleep in the hopes that no one would notice. And like looking back at that, I was trying to control the situation and just be like, I can work. If I put my mind to it, I can work. But like, why? Why did you do that? I could have taken the day, But that's the kind of thing you try to make the situation what you want it to be, and sometimes it just won't. It was rough. But you learn. I do remember the worst of it where, there were the 2 weeks that I was in and out of the hospital and just extremely sick. Like I lost 20 pounds, gained it back obviously, but I dropped weight so fast because I couldn't keep food in me. Yeah. And I made myself a screen for my phone, a wallpaper. It just said, remember who the fuck you are. Yes. Just like, I've done hard things before. Yes. I can do this. Yes. And every time I looked at my phone, that really helped. You can't control the situation, but it can be fierce.
Absolutely. And Emily, everything you are saying is resonating so clearly for me personally, because it's one thing to know that you are a strong person, but to remind yourself in those scenarios, I am still strong when I'm not in control.
Mm.
Yes. And I think that's also helped me a lot is learning what strength really is. Because,
Hmm.
for the longest time, I've always wanted to be a strong woman in that I want to be able to do push-ups. I want to be able to pull a keg. Like I want to be able to do all these things that have to do with like muscles. And learning that strength is also just like sometimes it's using a cane to get around because you can't get around otherwise. Sometimes it's going back to the hospital even though you really, really don't want to. Sometimes it's carrying a barf bag in your purse just in case you need it. Like strength can be so many things. And I have to say something because I realized I don't want anything that I say to come across as like, I beat cancer because I'm strong. Because that's not what I'm saying. Like there are strong
Hmm.
people who have not won a fight with cancer.
Mm.
And mindset does not dictate, if they didn't try, I'm not saying they didn't try hard enough. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mhm. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, I'm just so struck. And I'm remembering too, Emily, sometimes the conversations that we would have would be about the music world, but would also just be about the world in general. And I think that's one of the things we really connected on was just you have such a heart for other people and like such an eye for you're someone who very much recognizes your privilege and also recognizes like oppression around you. And oftentimes when I am working with folks, as a therapist who recognize their privilege and recognize oppression and are going through it themselves, they're quick to like minimize their experience and be like, oh, but I could, but it could be this, or like this is, but I have this instead. And I'm curious to know for you, Emily, like knowing who you are, was there a point where you're like, oh, like this is this is really bad and like I'm not going to compare myself, or were you comparing yourself? Does that question make sense?
It does. It does. There have been times even post cancer that I'm like, so I actually spoke at a cancer a melanoma walk last
Mm.
spring. The Aim at Melanoma nonprofit does a walk,
Mm.
all over the place, and I raised a bunch of money for it. So they asked me to be their guest of honor for that. So I
Mm.
got to do a little speech, and I had like a moment of like, did did I have enough cancer to
Mm.
to do this? Like, I only spent 2 weeks in the hospital. Like,
Mm.
I only lost my adrenal gland function. Is that enough? Like,
Mm.
am I enough of a survivor to like? Is it a valid thing? And for me also, it's hard because I don't remember those 2 weeks really. Like, I remember them from this side. I do not know who I was. Like, I ended up screenshotting a bunch of the conversations I had on Slack or on text with my husband, like texting him to bring me water or whatever. I don't remember saying any of those things. Like the what I had causes a little bit of short-term memory issues, and it's just all gone from my mind. So, one of my last treatments, I was like sitting there and they're setting me up for the infusion, and I was just like, honestly, like cancer was not, I didn't really have it that bad. And the nurse was like, I saw you. Like, yes, you did. And I'm like, okay. But so it's hard in that you have a little bit of like, how can you have imposter syndrome with something like this? But you
Mm.
can.
Mm.
So it's made me really feel for people who have imposter syndrome in every situation. It's
Mm.
really hard to feel like you're valid where you are.
Mm.
But it's also had this interesting effect where people will like talk to me about health issues they're having, and they always are like, it's not as bad as what you went through. And I'm always like, no, 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 it's not a competition. We're not comparing stories here. Just
Mm.
because I had cancer doesn't mean that, your appendicitis wasn't terrible. Like
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
objectively bad. I'm never gonna, I'm never gonna be that kind of person who's gonna one up you on health stories.
Mm.
It's all valid. It's
Mm.
all trauma. I get it.
Exactly. Like when we gatekeep the experience of, health issues, nobody wins.
Right. And you'd think that I could not have, imposter syndrome about it if that's how I feel about it. But
Mm.
humans are complex.
Yeah,
Aren't we
and
just?
Yes, absolutely. I'm wondering, having been, so how many years has it been? Has it been 5 years now, Emily?
Since I got sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was diagnosed in August of 2021. So I'm
Okay.
coming up on my 5 year anniversary.
Okay.
Well, this is my 4 year, isn't it?
For
I
you.
can't do
Yep.
math.
Me neither. Why would I do
I'm
that?
a soprano.
We just have to count
Sorry.
to 4 or 8 or sometimes 16,
Maybe.
occasionally 7, and that those are really bad days. Um, that was a music joke that hopefully some like one person gets. Um, yeah, I'm. What would you tell yourself of 4 years ago, knowing what you know now?
I would tell myself to be honest about how I feel, which I actually am still telling myself today. Like, don't try to grind.
Mm,
Don't try to just keep going. I don't know if this is true of most people with parents in the generation that mine are in, but I feel like I come from a long line of women who just keep going. Like no matter what, you just keep going.
mhm,
And so in some ways I feel very, very blessed to come from a line of extremely strong women. But that also means that sometimes we don't slow down and don't take the time we need for ourselves. So that is something that I'm constantly trying to ask myself. Like, are you doing what you need to do for yourself, for your health, for your brain? What do you need? And talk about what you need. I try really hard because I still have, I call them bad brain days. Because I still, I have a day where it's just not, I don't communicate well. I'm not understanding what people are talking about. I feel bad about myself. I feel lost. And I'll just tell my husband I'm having a bad brain day. Sometimes I even tell my team at work,
mm,
because my team is really good about being human and like connecting.
mm.
So I think what I would tell myself back then is like, strength is not what you think it is. Be honest with yourself about how you feel, and talk to other people about it.
Mm, mm,
Mm, that is so powerful, Emily. And as you say this, it also reminds me of what you were talking about before in your relationship to singing as well, that it doesn't become valid because it's part of your career or it turns into the hustle of doing like a side hustle on the side or anything like that. And so would you say that taking part in that form of expression or your creativity just for the sake of doing so is also plays into that reminder for yourself?
Absolutely. Yes. Because, when I think about like how I run, I'm a terrible runner. I'm so slow. I barely run. 5 miles is like my max these days, maybe 6. But for a long time, I gate kept myself, and I would be like, I can't tell people I'm a runner because I jog. But it's like, okay, do you run? Okay, then you're a runner, right? And I'm kind of like, do you sing? Okay, then you're a singer.
mm,
You know, Money does not make my singing valid.
mm,
Singing makes my singing valid. And so I think that has helped me be kinder to myself as far as like holding my standards. It's so hard to create standards for yourself that you're never going to meet because it's out of your control.
mm, mm, mm.
And that's what singing was for me. So when I changed the standard of like, are you having fun? It helps a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's helped me keep my mindset better and like make me have more honest conversations with myself about like, do you even want to sing today? You don't have to.
Mm,
It's not a big deal.
mm.
Nothing matters.
And nobody
Mm-hmm.
cares.
Nobody
Mm-hmm.
cares.
Yeah, absolutely. I think reset, as you're describing too, is having those conversations, like you were saying, communicating what you need and how you feel and what's going on really helps to level set those situations too. Because even as you're talking about running, I remember my mom loved running when I was little, and she never let anything get in the way of her running schedule in terms of like her goal of wanting to run a marathon. Now, she never told anybody she was a runner, like, by title. And she would probably say the same thing, like, yeah, I jog. I want to do this marathon as like a life goal type of thing. And so she literally got one of those like prams with the bicycle wheels on it so she could take me with her.
Nice.
And she might not consider herself to be a runner or having like a high degree of, physical fitness, but that meant so much to me as a kid. Like I see her in a completely different light. It's being so incredibly proud of her, of all the work she did to get to that point and do the marathon and have that time together. And that meant so much to me, seeing her be committed to herself and her health. So even though we might not see ourselves that way, you never know who you're inspiring.
It's true. And I bet that was just incredible memories from that time. That must have been so much fun.
Hmm. And then my favorite memory too, like seeing her do the marathon in Honolulu and seeing my mom, this, woman who was like 90 pounds soaking wet and consume an entire large pizza by herself afterwards was some of the best. Like I hold those memories so near and dear to my heart too.
That's also a form of strength.
Yes.
Emily, the other thing I think that so struck me about our work together, we we really only worked together once, right? On that one production, which is a true crime. Hopefully we'll get another opportunity, but I think something that was so special about that particular production was our crew of covers were like super tight. It was a fun bunch and we just like lived off of humor. And I will say one of my least professional moments, one of my crimes against the grind, to call back to a past episode that I thought of after we recorded the episode. I was like, oh, I should have mentioned this one was so the way that covers work, they what do they call them in not opera?
Understudy.
Thank you, understudy. It's an understudy basically. So, and this particular company was great, and they gave us a performance in full costume with the orchestra, um, and which is unusual as a cover. Sometimes as covers, you might not be able to sing a note for the entire production, and but you have to learn the entire role and be ready to go.
You
So
may not even know the blocking
right,
sometimes.
right, you might not even be invited to the rehearsal where you learn where to be and when. So this was a great production, great opportunity, and so we got really close because we were doing the thing, and that was my first lead role in an opera. Emily, was it your first? Like no, you've done it before.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, you were old hand at that point, but that was my first time like doing a lead role. And so I remember the next day after our performance was like, I think a dress rehearsal and then they had two actual performances. And I just remember the next day just being like feeling so liberated and so free and just like I could do anything at that point and did do anything. And so the covers are supposed to attend everything just in case, right? So we came fully loaded with like 3 bottles of wine, Cards Against Humanity, and took up a decent amount of space in the green room. I remember just
Yes.
like knocking out some epic games of Cards Against Humanity, drinking wine, and I remember some side glances from the cat, the actual Rosalinda's and Adele's, who were probably just kind of like, we're doing an opera right now. Like we
But it
don't.
was our mini cast party.
Yeah, we had a 3-day cast party basically, and discovered some of our fellow cast members were pretty dark. Actually, stuff got dark. Anyway, I say all this to say one of the things that was such a pleasure. You have a great sense of humor, and you didn't like you were wildly professional, took the role very seriously, always extremely prepared. You knew your stuff. You were memorized very quickly, I remember, and very reliable, which is huge when you're sharing, when you're sharing a stage with someone. It's really important to feel that way because we did a lot together. Those two roles do a lot together. Our first thing was a duet. And But to also know that you had that sense of humor also let me feel like I could just kind of like chill out as much as I could in that moment. And I'm wondering how that helped in your recovery from cancer.
Oh gosh, it helped so much. I mean, I was constantly cracking jokes at the cancer center. Like I always wanted the nurses to like me. But I was, a place like a cancer center is in and of itself kind of a tough place to be, you know? And I never wanted to be inappropriate for the location, but I always wanted to, because that's my personality. I get it from both my parents of just like I want to connect with you, and I will use humor because that's the easiest thing I have. That's my best tool in my box. And I remember, the day of my diagnosis, I'm like at this new doctor's place, and it's like 3 hours since I got the news, and this doctor is asking me all these questions about me, and I think he's just trying to make me feel less scared. And at one point, he asked me like, "What did you have for dinner last night?" And just like making conversation. And I was like, 2 hot dogs, but I probably should have only had one. And he just goes, "This is not an interrogation." And I just remember being like, okay, okay, fair. and and that's always stayed with me, where it's like it's nice that other people can find joy in those situations, you know. And even with my oncologist, I was like cracking jokes with her, and I realized because she's very serious, very Russian, lovely, lovely woman, but very serious. Knows a ton. Obviously, she saved my life. She, gave me treatment that almost killed me, but she also saved my life, which I'm thankful for. But I would always crack these jokes at her on my appointments and check-ins, and she didn't laugh at them until it was very clear that I was going to be okay. And that actually was a really startling moment for me, where it's like, I don't think she could let me connect with her on that level until she knew it would not hurt, if something went wrong. That was really interesting to me. And that actually told me something about what my humor is actually doing, which is connecting with people too, So I think it's helped me keep things lighthearted. I was told multiple times, so many people, "You're so inspiring, you're so lighthearted." And it's like, well, I do cry at home alone, sometimes not at home, but like most of the time I'm just happy to be here, like that's just my perspective. So I think it's helped me in keeping it light, because that is in my nature anyway, but it's helped me kind of keep moving even in the hard times.
Would you do another like lead role in an opera again?
I would. I don't audition much anymore, but I totally would.
Same. It was so stressful. It was so
Yeah.
stressful. And that part of it for me is just like, like
I love it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Once you're there, the audition process is the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, that's why, I'm not waiting for the next opera. I'm just singing small things.
I absolutely love not only the friendships, but also the spaces that allow you to use some of, your dark humor, because whether, we can take a moment to laugh at each other's trauma or general experiences and get a little dark with it, it's such a huge relief and definitely makes us feel like we're not so alone with it either.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Emily, what kind of advice or wisdom would you give to either people who are experiencing health issues or in the middle of the hustle culture or in deep burnout? Like, what are some things that you've learned?
So what's wild is I had a palliative care team, because they could see how badly I was suffering from the adrenal insufficiency before it was diagnosed, and things were just really, really hard. And when you have something like an adrenal gland die, and your hormones are all messed up, so your emotions are all messed up, so everything's harder. I met with the palliative care team, and the 3 tips that they gave me I would use for all of these scenarios. And one is to find a comforting object, something to ground with. And I forgot to, actually, maybe I do. Hang on. I have a little labradorite stone that I carry with me. because it's very, very smooth and
Mm,
very, very pretty. And it just fits
mm,
right in your hand. So
mm,
when I'm really, really anxious, I carry it with me. I put it in my pocket, I put it in my purse, and I just hold it because it just feels good in my hands. So having something that just reminds you to ground yourself.
mm,
Another one
Mm.
is a mantra,
mm.
which I also use in both scenarios, all of the scenarios, which is like, I've done harder stuff than this. I can do hard things. I can do this. I can do hard things. I think the biggest one is I can do tough shit, you know?
Mhm.
And then the last one is when I was really, really, really sick, I couldn't do what I love to do, which is running and walking. I could not go out and do those things. And it was really hard for me because going out and, taking a walk, taking time outside and breathing fresh air really helps with my mental state. And not being able to because I was so sick and weak was really hard. And my palliative care team said, if you have time, just close your eyes and imagine taking a walk, somewhere, maybe on a beach, maybe in a forest, wherever you want. And just taking a moment and just thinking about somewhere else has been really helpful too. So those are my three things. Full credit to my palliative care team because I did not come up with those on my own, but they still help me in my everyday life.
Mm, those are so powerful. And it reminds me too of like kind of similar to what I've heard in dealing in even just moments of anxiety. Find something that you can see, you can touch, you can
Yes.
smell, that kind of thing too. I love
Yes.
that approach.
I do that too. And like the counting the things where they're yellow and now, count the things that are green. And I've
Mm,
done that as well. Just something to get yourself out of yourself or like the breathing exercises. I use the calm breathing exercises as well
Mhm.
when things are
hmm
bad. So
Mhm.
stuff to take
Yeah,
you out of your moment.
Mhm. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, Emily, it has been such a pleasure to, I mean, really, like, I'm just so excited to see you. It's been a while, and
Likewise.
hopefully I'll catch you soon in IRL. And I just really appreciate your sharing all of this. I know I am inspired in ways that, I mean, you've inspired me in the past, and now I'm even more inspired. So thank you so much for taking the time in what is probably the middle of your workday to come join us.
Don't tell.
I mean, it's like 7 o'clock at night. What am I
It's
talking
like
about?
super late.
So late. It's my bedtime now. Um,
But thank
and
you.
anything that you want folks to know about, how can folks find you or information that's important to you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I have an Instagram that's private, but if you want to add me, I'll probably allow you. You can find my website if you're curious about my journey. I have a very extensive blog of my experience with cancer on my website, emilybieber.com. And get your skin checked.
Mm,
If you're an adult of whatever race, I don't care what color skin you have, you should get your skin checked
mm,
because we are all susceptible to skin cancer. I was never a person who tanned.
mm,
Anyone can get this. So if you just get your skin checked every year or so, wear your SPF.
mm.
That's the best you can do.
Thank you. And Caitlin, where can we find you when we're not in the burnout break room?
People can find me at editsingreen.com, either if you've got a book in the works and you want some support, either with editing or author coaching, or if you are a creative looking to reconnect with your creative practices. I do creative coaching as well. You can also find me on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, as well as our podcast here. And Lyndie, for those looking to connect with you, where can they find you?
So they can go to my website, lindielarrimore.com, to learn more about my leadership coaching, consulting work, and career coaching. I also do neurodivergent specific career coaching and also Facebook, Instagram, and please visit all of the lovely sites we have for the Burnout Break Room podcast. Let us know that you're listening. We love your feedback and we love engaging in conversations with you through any one of our platforms on Facebook or Instagram, Threads, TikTok. Otherwise, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you, Emily.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you, Emily. Thank you so much for coming with us here in the Burnout Break Room and sharing your amazing story.
Thank you for having me. I'm just glad to tell a story that resonates with people.